I would do. I'm gonna have to back you up a little bit because I have no angle for myself here. My old bones cannot take it. What are we doing here? We'll just throw that guy there. Why not? You thought the floating head was gone, but it's not. Hello book lovers, welcome back to the channel. My name is Steph, and in today's video we will be doing Tackle My TBR episode 11. Welcome to Tackle My TBR episode 11. It is so crazy that we are already on episode 11, but again, this is one of my favorite videos that I do on my channel. I love that I get to incorporate my subscribers in these videos. If you are new here and you have no idea what I am talking about, I will leave the entire playlist of Tackle My TBR linked down below so that you can watch all of the previous episodes and see me tackling my TBR. Now, I do just want to address something very, very quickly. There was a comment on my previous video that somebody wanted an update on how I am doing with my physical TBR. I feel like I might do like a dedicated video and kind of show you, like, go through all of the books that I have done on Tackle My TBR and kind of where I am at. But unfortunately, I don't think that it'll be super satisfying because I feel like I am buying as many books as I am able to read. So I feel like my number is always sitting kind of at the 850 mark. I feel like when I did my entire physical TBR, I was sitting at 855 books. And currently, while I am filming this, I think I am sitting at like 850. So what that means to me is that yes, I am definitely reading quite a bit of my own books, but I am also buying books at the same rate that I am able to read them. So my number isn't getting any higher, which I absolutely love that for me, but my number is also not significantly getting decreased. So I do want to change that. So I do appreciate that comment on my video. So what I think I am going to do, and I should have done this kind of for the new year to give myself a new year refresh moment. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the number to like 10 books because I'm usually able to read between 10 and 30 books in a month. So I think that if I give myself a number like the number 10, I'm not 100% sure if that's the number I'm going to pick. I might do like a number 5. I'm not sure yet. But I think that what I should do is that I should make sure that I read at least 10 owned books before I am able to buy any other books. And that does not include my book of the month or aardvark selections because I just don't feel like those should count as I pay for my book of the month yearly and the aardvark comes out every single month. So I don't want to make that like one of my books. I think that I should make it a point to do like 5 books and then I can buy myself a book, or do like 10 books from my owned TBR and then buy myself a book. And that way I will be way more inclined to pick up books that I own, which I have been doing a lot of lately. I am actually very proud of my progress. I have been reading way more owned books than I have ever before. I do find myself, even when I am making my TBRs, I am trying to do it with just like mostly owned books. That is all to say, this is a very like long-winded update, but that is all to say that I haven't really made a huge dent in the number from my physical TBR, as we are sitting at about 850 right now. But that is only because I am buying books at the same rate that I am reading them from my shelves. So the number is not actually going up, which does make me very, very happy. I do plan on doing like an updated physical TBR probably in the middle of the year. I don't know, probably a year from the time where my last one was. And I am hoping and praying that the number that shows up on that video is just lower than the one from the previous year. But without further ado, let's jump right into our first spin for Tackle My TBR episode 11. I definitely think that I want to keep this episode to 4 books. I feel like 4 books is kind of like a perfect like compromise per episode. It doesn't really overwhelm me, but again, we will go based off of like how long the books are. And I know some of you are coming for me in these comments because I saw a lot of you guys picking the Sarah J. Maas shelf on purpose. And I know that you guys did that. So I know you guys are coming for me. So depending on what books get selected, it will obviously depend on how many I'm going to do for this month. And yeah, let's just get right on into this episode and get on into this spinner wheel. Okay, so I am just going to put the wheel spinner right beside me here. And we will see what number gets selected. I don't know if it translates, but this wheel is getting completely out of control. So we have 7, 6, and 13, or 9, 3, and 16. And typically I do pick the first number when someone sends me 2. So I am just going to pick the first number, even though I think that shelf 7 has been getting a lot of love. I feel like not a lot of people send in 7s anymore. So I will use 7, 6, and 13, which is literally directly behind me here. But I do have to lower you guys, so I will see you when we are on the floor. Hopefully that's not too bad of an angle, but I literally had no way of getting down on the floor here. So this is the shelf in question, and we do have to count to 13, so let us count to 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13. 13 is Sugar Baby by Celine St. Clair, which is a book that I have not read. So this one works out perfectly for spin number 1. Okay, so spin number 1 was definitely a success. So I am just going to remove that set of coordinates and we will spin again for our next set of coordinates. And I'm excited. I have no idea what that is about, but it was definitely a cover buy, so I was excited about that. Okay, 9, 3, and 25. So again, on the same side, and I believe it is this shelf that we will be picking from. So I will get you all adjusted to the right height and I will see you in 1 second. Okay, so this is the shelf in question. This is number 9, shelf number 3, and we have to count to 25. I'm going to move this guy out of the way, so no distractions. Let's count to 25. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 23, 24, 25. So 25 is The Time Traveler's Wife, which I have read. It's The Perks of Being a Wallflower, also have read. My Lovely Wife, also read. Salt to the Sea, another one that I have read. And then we get to LA Weather, which is one that I have not read. So this will be the next book for Tackle My TBR episode 11. And this entire shelf I've pretty much read everything from except for these two. Actually, I guess these 3, never mind. The beginning of the shelf I didn't read from. But this is the one that is selected, so this is what we will be reading as our second book. Okay, so far, not bad. I don't really know what either of those 2 books are about. So I am very intrigued and I will find out once I read the synopsis, but let's pick our next set of coordinates. So we'll remove those and then spin the wheel. So far, we're doing well. I feel like we're on a good little momentum train here, so that's good. Let's see. 9, 5, and 43. So I believe that will be a different shelf. Yes, okay, it's a different shelf. It is still going to be bookshelf number 9, but it is a lot lower and we have to count to 43. So give me 1 minute. Okay, so this is 9, 5, and we do have to count to 43, which is on the higher end. So let us start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 40, 41, 42, 43. Wow. I am actually shocked because I have read quite a bit of books on that shelf, but this is one that I have not read, and another one that looks quite short, and that is Watch Over Me by Nina LaCour. And I just realized that I was not talking in the camera at all, so sorry about that. Very excited about this episode's picks, actually, because I have not really heard anyone talking about these books, which I absolutely love. I love reading books that are not part of all of the hype, which is great. So here is probably what is going to be our last spin. Okay, so 3, 5, and 19, and yes, I know that I have like this thing that says not with additional number. That is just for me to know like which person's coordinates that is, because that is clearly a double coordinate. That is not something that you need to worry about, but what you do need to worry about is that we are going to 3, 5, and 19. So I will meet you on over there. Okay, so this is the 5th shelf on the 3rd actual bookshelf, and we do have to count to book 19. So let us start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. 19 is Gallant by V.E. Schwab, which I have read, and the book beside it is Immortality by Dana Schwartz, which I believe is book 2 in this series, but I do own the first one, so I will go and get the first one and then I'll meet you back to read all of the synopsis from these books. Okay, I am back and I did decide to do 4 books, so let's go through all 4 books that I will be reading for this video. So the first book that was selected was Sugar Baby by Celine St. Clair. I again had no idea what this book was about. This was strictly a cover buy. I saw this and was like immediately like drawn to this book. So this sounds like we are following a character named Agnes, and Agnes is kind of just living a very boring, mundane life, and she does end up meeting another character named Emily. Emily lives this very lavish lifestyle, and Emily tells Agnes that she is a sugar baby, so Agnes does decide to, I think, get into that line of work and really does appreciate appreciate like getting all of this attention from different men, but then her mother finds out and kicks her out of her house, so Agnes and Celine do end up moving in together. I have not really heard anybody talking about this, so I am very curious to see how I feel, because that synopsis sounds really good. It sounds like we are going to get some good social commentary as well, as there is some discussions about race that are in this book as well. So I'm super excited, very happy that this got selected, and excited to see what I think. Again, I don't really hear anybody talking about this. And the next book that was selected is LA Weather. This is written by Maria Amparo Escandon. I'm sure I am pronouncing that incorrectly, but this actually sounds very interesting. It is a Reese Book Club pick, so that is very exciting. So this follows the lives of Oscar, who is very much weather obsessed, and it is about him and his wife, Keela, and Keela decides that she no longer wants to live this life with a man who is just like so obsessed with the weather, and they are just like not in a very like intimate relationship anymore. So she decides to file for divorce, and this does shock their 3 daughters, who also are living very independent lives as well. Another book that I have not heard anybody talking about, which is very surprising because it is a Reese Book Club pick, but this cover just like had me very much intrigued. I feel like there's going to be like a mystery element to this, so I am very excited that this also did get selected for this episode. The next book that was selected is Watch Over Me by Nina LaCour. I don't think that I have ever read anything by this author, but this cover was just absolutely stunning, and when I open it up to look inside, like look at the end pages, also very, very stunning. So this follows the story of Mila, who is very recently like graduated from high school, and she is offered the like job of a lifetime, where she is offered this teaching position on a remote island. It sounds like it is going to be very creepy. It sounds like there are going to be ghosts there. And I will just read the bottom of the book. It does say that Watch Over Me is a modern ghost story about trauma and survival, chosen family, and rebirth. So this sounds absolutely perfect. Again, super, super short, so I should be able to read this very quickly, and I'm very excited that this one got selected for this episode. And finally, the last book that was selected is going to be Anatomy, a Love Story by Dana Schwartz. This is the first book. Like I said, the one that you saw was the second book in the series, which I have not read this one, so I will be picking this one up. This again is another Reese Book Club pick, but this is the YA Book Club pick. And this is such a cool cover as well, because it looks like it is a heart, but it is actually like a woman standing with her like dress flared out. So very, very interesting cover. And this says it is a gothic tale full of mystery and romance. Hazel Simmet is a lady who wants to be a surgeon more than she wants to marry. Jack Currer is a resurrection man who's just trying to survive in a city where it's too easy to die. I'm not sure how long ago this came out, because I don't really see anybody talking about or even reading this book anymore, but I do think that this was like pretty popular at one time, so I am curious to see how I feel about it. Again, it is YA, so it makes me slightly nervous, but very excited to be reading more books from my TBR. So those are the 4 books that were selected for Tackle My TBR episode 11. Again, if you do want to participate, all you need to do is leave me a set of coordinates down below in the comments. The first is a number between 1 and 10, the second a number between 1 and 6, and the third a number between 1 and 50. I do have all of the rules down below in every single description of my video. So as you guys know, as this is episode 11, I will check back in once I have started reading the first book and I have some thoughts. I like to try and update you guys at the 50% mark and then kind of give you my final thoughts on the book. I am not the best at doing that, and I am going to try and get better. I am also in a little bit of a reading slump right now. I just have not really been feeling myself lately, so I'm hoping that these books kind of help me get out of this reading slump. But again, I will check back in once I have started the first book. Welcome to Tackle My TBR episode 11. Hello and welcome to the first update of Tackle My TBR episode 11. As you guys saw, the book that I am starting with is LA Weather by Maria Escandon, and I am 50% done with this book, so I thought that this would be a perfect time to check in, give you guys a little update on how my reading is going. I was able to listen to the first 50% of this all throughout the morning. I had some like chores that I had to do around the house, and I was able to listen to 50% of this story. And this book I have like very mixed feelings on at this point, and I'll kind of get into that, but let me just kind of explain a little bit more about what this book is about. There's not too much more detail that I need to really go into this book. We do follow the Alvarado family that consists of Keela and Oscar, and they are, I believe they've been married for like over 35 years. They're like 37, 38 years married, and they have 3 adult daughters that we are also following. It's Claudia, Olivia, and Patricia. I actually have to just look at the names because I totally forgot the daughters' names, but we also follow the lives of of their 3 adult daughters. And the best way I can describe it is the way that it was described to me on Goodreads, and it is very much like a soap opera. There is so much packed into this short little book, and there's just so much happening to this poor family. So right at the beginning, one of the daughters does have Keela watching her twins. There is something that happens. I won't really spoil it, even though it's not technically a spoiler because it does happen in the like first couple of pages, but that was something that just really captivated me. So I'm not going to like get too much into detail on what that event is, but that definitely captivated me into the story about what was happening with these twins and how Keela was watching them, and just a lot going on with that. So yeah, I was very interested and very much invested in the beginning of this story. There seemed to be like a lot happening, and I will say that there are a ton of trigger warnings in this, like specifically revolving around like relationships, but also like pregnancy. Anything that you guys can think of in terms of pregnancy is pretty much mentioned in here. So if that's not something that's interesting to you, I would definitely first check trigger warnings, and then if that's obviously not something you're interested in, would not recommend this one. The biggest problem I have with this is I think that the author is just trying to pack so much into this story and just have so much happen to this one family. Like, I am again 50% of the way through, and we have already had so many events happen. I obviously can't get into all of them because they would be spoilers, but there is like medical things happening. There is like near-death experiences happening. A lot of like weather talk as well, which I was expecting just based on the cover and also the title of this book. But yeah, the amount of just like torture that is happening to this family is almost like, it's supposed to keep you engaged, but it's almost making it like a boring story. I don't know if that makes sense. It probably doesn't make sense because usually when things are happening, it's very like fast paced, but I just don't think that I care that much about these characters. And I just feel like it is almost like too much to be believable that like all of these different events are happening to this one family. Definitely a lot of unlikable characters in here. Definitely a lot of like family dynamic situations, dramas that are happening in here. But yeah, not much more to say on this. I am going to try and keep the updates like super brief and try to give you guys just my main thoughts and obviously what the book is about. The one thing I will say about this book that I am enjoying is the way that it's actually told. So it does take place over what I believe is going to be the span of a year, because each chapter does start with a different month. So there are 12 chapters in here. And so far as I have been reading this, we have been starting with each chapter as a different month. So we did start in January, and I'm assuming that the book is going to end in December. And that is just something that I do like about this book. I think that the way that it's told is really cool. It breaks it down into months and then specific days. It's easy to keep track of the story that way. On the other hand of that, I also feel like it just makes it even more unbelievable that, again, all of these events and things that are happening with the daughters and their relationships are all happening within the span of just a year. Like, this is definitely going to be this family's like most devastating year of their life, I'm sure. But yeah, that one I am listening to very quickly. So I am hoping to get that done today and then hopefully start the next book for this video today. So you may see me again with my final thoughts on LA Weather and then whatever I decide to pick up next. But so far, LA Weather is sitting at like a 3-star right now. There's nothing really outstanding about the story. I was very much gripped at the beginning, but I am slowly losing steam and not caring so much about the characters. But I will check back in once I do have some further updates for you guys. Okay, good morning. How are we all doing? It is the next day, but I do have some exciting reading updates. So I was able to finish LA Weather yesterday, and I have to say that this was just a very average read for me. So I did end up giving LA Weather a 2.5 stars out of 5. The book didn't really change its pacing or anything like that in the like second half of the book. I feel like the same things were happening. It was just one event after the other as the months kind of progressed. I will say again that I did really like the way that the story was told, in the sense that each chapter was a different month of the year, and then throughout each chapter we did get different dates, so it did make it like very linear. It made the timeline very easy to follow. The same problems that I was having with the book in the first 50% are kind of the same ones that continued on. I just feel like the author did way too much. I feel like it was just like unbelievable event after unbelievable event, and that kind of took me out of the story. And then I don't know if I mentioned, but there is just such a big talk about weather, and I think that there's supposed to be like a deeper deeper meaning with like global warming and the weather, but also the way that this family is structured, but I just wasn't smart enough to put that all together. So the weather talk kind of got a little bit daunting to read, if I'm being honest, but that's kind of more of like a me problem, because you should know what you're getting into this book when you get into it, as the title literally says LA weather. So I knew that there was going to be some sort of like weather element. So I can't really fault the book for that. It just wasn't super like interesting to read about for me. So yeah, I did end up giving this one a 2.5 stars. It honestly wasn't horrible, but again, it was just very unbelievable. So I'm settling on a 2.5, like right in the middle. Very, very average read. And then I did forget to mention that I also didn't like how this book wrapped up, because there's just so much like pain and suffering that happens throughout this book. And then the ending is almost like the complete opposite of that. And it just felt like that type of an ending just didn't fit with this type of a book, if that makes sense, because you are expecting something a lot more tragic to happen than what the ending actually is and what the conclusion is and what we actually got. So I feel like the ending was a little bit disappointing, but yeah, that is all I really have to say for this book. So we will move on to our next book. Okay, and then the next book that I did start, and I am just over the 50% mark, but right in around the 50% mark, is Anatomy, a Love Story by Dana Schwartz. This is a historical fiction. It is YA, and I believe that it is part of a duology, and then I think that that completes the entire series. So yeah, like I was saying, it is a historical fiction. It does take place in the 1800s in Edinburgh, and it does follow the story of Hazel. Hazel is, I believe, the daughter of a viscount, or she is the daughter of like a very wealthy family. And her family's like big goal for her is basically to just see her have a successful marriage. That is all they care about, that she gets married. Hazel, on the other hand, has a love for anatomy and being a surgeon. So her biggest goal in life is to be a surgeon. So then there is another element of this book where we are introduced to a character named Jack. Jack has a partner, and basically their job is to dig up dead bodies. And that is actually all I'm going to say for some additional context on this book, because I actually feel like the synopsis on Goodreads gives away way too much. That is one problem that I am having with this book, is that I feel like it's another situation where if you read the synopsis, you are about 30% into the book and the synopsis is still happening as you are reading it, and I absolutely hate that, and that's why I like to go into my books blind. So I just gave you what I think is essential for the synopsis of this book, and I think that that is perfect going into it. Although I did mention something that I don't like about this book, I do want to say that I am absolutely loving this book. I am so obsessed with the story of this book, and no one is more surprised than me. First of all, I will say Hazel as a main character is just such a like pleasant reading experience. I think that she is making like really smart choices, and I think that she is not like the typical like YA heroine. I also just love the time period that this book takes place in. I love the setting of Edinburgh. I'm just having such a good time with it. Yeah, so this book does say that it is gothic, but I will say that I'm not really getting the gothic vibes. I am getting like dark and slight horror vibes just in the descriptions of like the surgery and the anatomy part of it, but I'm not really getting gothic vibes from this book, so just be aware of that. But I am loving the whole like Jack aspect of this book, and like the bodies and the graves, and then Hazel being very interested in anatomy and surgery. And for some reason, this book is giving very much like Stalking Jack the Ripper vibes. So if you liked that book, I would definitely try to check this one out. I am actually enjoying this one way more. I feel like this is going to be a very high 4-star right now. And yeah, I am just going to try and finish this now and then start something else. So hopefully I can give you guys another update today when I have finished this book, and then I am 50% into my next book. But so far I'm very happy with my progress. We've already finished one book, and I am 50% done with this, and it's not a very long audiobook, so I should be able to finish this and then hopefully start the next book for this video. Okay, hello, how are we doing? I am freshly showered and ready to talk to you guys about some reading updates that I have. But first of all, I just want to say, like, so sorry for like the chaotic clip that was before this. I was just editing my video really quick and realized how chaotic that clip was with all of the background noise. Like, you hear my kid just like screaming in the background. background, so I apologize, but that is the life of a mom. So I'm sure if you do have kids, you can completely understand that, but we are here to talk about books. So let me give you guys some very exciting updates. The first one being that I did finish Anatomy, a Love Story by Dana Schwartz, and I absolutely loved this book. I ended up giving this one a 4.25 stars. I was very much captivated by this story. I loved the vibes of this book so much. And although I do wish that it did give a little bit more gothic, it was definitely giving like 1800 and just that time period, and just having a female aspiring surgeon and just seeing like everything that she did, and her and Jack also got up to a bunch of like different shenanigans throughout the book, and that was really, really fun. There was also a little bit of a mystery element in here that takes place a little bit closer to the end of the book, and I personally really enjoyed the mystery of this book, so I don't really have too much more to add on this. This is definitely one that I would recommend to you, specifically if you liked Stalking Jack the Ripper. It gives very similar vibes, but it is like a completely different story, and there is a bit of a romance going on in here, but it is very like light on the romance, a believable romance, I want to say, but it's not overbearing in any way. Now, upon finishing this book, I was looking at reviews, and it seems that a lot of people who have read this book have actually not enjoyed the very, very end of this book. They say that this book was like perfection. It was so good up until the last 10%, and I can 100% see why the ending of this book and the last little bit of this book would not work for people. But for me, I actually really enjoyed that little twist, and I actually really enjoyed the direction that this book took. And this isn't going to be a spoiler, but just know that there is a little bit of an unrealistic element to this book. So it, for the most part, does read like it could happen in real life, but there definitely is a little bit of like an unrealistic aspect to this book. So just know that going into it. And the end of this book did make me like slightly question Hazel and kind of like her motives and what she is like actually wanting for her life and like where her life is going to go. So I am actually very much excited to get into the sequel of this book. And again, I said I think that it is just a duology, and I do own the second book. So very excited to continue on with this series, as this was such a pleasant surprise, something that I picked up actually quite recently. So I'm happy that I read it and got it off of like my to be read pile. So definitely would recommend this. And then I am happy to say that I am also just over the 50% mark of Watch Over Me by Nina LaCour. This book is very, very interesting. So first, let me just kind of tell you a little bit of the synopsis, and then I'll kind of get into my feelings, although I'm not even sure what I'm feeling about this book. But essentially, this book, we are following Mila, who is our main character, and she has kind of grown out of the foster system. So she was in foster care, and she has kind of aged out of it. So she is now an adult. So she gets the opportunity to go to an isolated like Northern California coast to teach other foster kids at a foster home. So she is in charge of teaching 6 to 9-year-old kids, but there is only one kid that is currently at the foster home that falls into that age category, and his name is Lee. So Mila is just teaching Lee, and she starts to kind of form a relationship with him. And then there is an element where this farmhouse is actually haunted, and Mila is able to see ghosts there. So that is the premise of this novel. And again, I truly do not know how I feel about it. The writing is absolutely stunning in here. The prose in this book is very, very much like prominent throughout the writing. So it is very beautiful, which is something that typically really doesn't work for me. I have a really hard time connecting with like very beautiful writing, but this is just like so short, sweet, and to the point that I feel like it's very much working in this book. I also think that I'm not 100% smart enough for this book. Like I feel like there are a lot of like underlying messages, like specifically with the ghosts. It is still unclear to me if this is a true ghost story where our characters are able to see the ghosts, or if the ghosts are kind of a metaphor for something else. I am still kind of having a hard time to wrap my head around that, but it does seem like Mila comes from a background of a lot of trauma and hurt and grief. So I feel like those are kind of the messages that are being like construed throughout this novel. I will say that the setting of this book is absolutely wonderful. I love the isolated farmhouse setting. I love the like Northern California coast. So you get like the farmhouse setting, but then you're also near like water. So you kind of get that like isolated like cabin type of feel. So very much enjoying it, but I'm just having like a hard time kind of like explaining my thoughts and feelings about the book, because I think that this one is going to go like right over my head. I feel like the author is a genius and I am just like not smart enough to kind of comprehend what she is trying to tell her readers with this book. But I am actually going to like do a tandem read right now. So I'm going to listen to the audiobook and actually follow along to see if I am just missing something or if that makes it easier for me to understand. This is a pretty short book. The spacing in here, there are a lot of like open spaces in the book as well. So it shouldn't take me too long to finish this, but I am very excited to get to the end of this book. So hopefully I am able to give you guys some more coherent thoughts, because right now I feel like my brain is just all over the place trying to understand this book, but I am enjoying it. But I do think that if you are looking for a book that is powerful and deals with grief, that this would be a really good choice. But I also think that if you want to pick this up for like a horror type book or like a spooky book, I definitely don't think that this is the book for you. So yeah, I am just gonna go and finish this really quickly now. It probably shouldn't take me more than like an hour, and then I will jump back on once I have started the last book, which is Sugar Baby, and I am 50% done with that, and then I will come back and try to give you some more coherent thoughts on this book. Okay, hello, how are we doing? I am coming at you guys with my final update, and yes, I know I do still owe you guys a little bit of like updates and 50% thought, but I figured I would just finish off my feelings for Watch Over Me by Nina LaCour, and then I will move on to the last book, which I have started and finished. So I will give you all of my thoughts and then we will wrap up this video. I don't really have too much else to say for this book. This book was just a very this book was a story that I think just didn't click with my brain. I think that it was like a beautifully written story, and I think that the writing is really good in this book, and I think that the message in the story is really good in this book, but it was just something that I personally was not able to connect with and I was not able to fully understand, but I did still enjoy some of the story. I would like to kind of see if there's any explanations, or like if you have read this book, if you can message me so we can talk about it, because I would really like to kind of know like the grief elements in here and like just the way that the ghosts kind of symbolized certain things. I did understand one part of the story where we are following Mila and she is talking about her past, because we do get flashbacks to her past. I don't know if I mentioned that in my previous update, but we are reading from her at this like isolated farmhouse, but we are also getting flashbacks from her past, and there is a lot of things that happen that would make her need to like grieve and have to kind of like accept things that have been done. So I did understand that. Overall, I did decide to give this book a 3 out of 5 stars because it did kind of pull some emotions out of me and it did make me feel things. I just personally don't think that I fully grasped exactly like how good this book is. If you do like very lyrical writing, if you do like a beautiful story, and you like a good like book that makes you think and deep dive into things, I think I would recommend this book to you. For me, I couldn't get behind it. But again, I did give it a 3 stars because I did actually enjoy my reading experience. I just don't think I got like the full grasp of it. So 3 out of 5 stars, nothing else really to say on that. And then I just finished Sugar Baby by Celine St. Clair. This I am going to sit on my rating for a little bit. I will let you know by the end of this clip, but I will just kind of talk you guys through what this book is about and then give you my thoughts and feelings, and then I will hopefully have settled on a rating for this book. This unfortunately is another book where I feel like if you read the synopsis, you are pretty much like 50% into this story already. So if you decide to read this book's synopsis, just know that the things that you know about the book are happening, and it's like 50% of the way into the book. So it does spoil quite a bit of the book. So my like little Cole's Notes version of exactly what this book is about. We do follow our main character, Agnes. Agnes is described as a mixed race 21-year-old. She is a cleaner and that is her job, but she is very unfulfilled in her life. She is just doing all of the mundane things that she thinks that she needs to do. And then she meets Emily, who is the daughter of one of her cleaning clients, and the two of them form a friendship, and Emily kind of takes Agnes under her wing and starts to introduce her into this completely different life and gives her the opportunity to start a different job and working in a certain industry. That's kind of the Cole's Notes version of what this book is about. So right away, the first note that I made is that our main character has a very interesting relationship with her mom. You can see that her mom has very high expectations of her. Her mom really does like not want her to fall into like anything that is considered bad, and she really does hold hold her to a really high standard and holds her very much accountable. So the relationship between them is very interesting, and it kind of sets the pace for the story and where it's going to go, because you know that Agnes is going to get into this very scandalous work type, and her mom, you already know, is not going to be okay with it. So you start questioning things as a reader, like, how is this going to end? Is her relationship with her mom going to be ruined? Is she going to have to start telling lies to her mom? So I thought the relationship dynamic between Agnes and her mom was interesting, and I thought that it would have played a very big role in this book. I found that Agnes as a character was very one-dimensional though. Like, she as a character, and I'm sure that she was written on purpose to be this way, but she as a character was very much just forming into what she thought the people around her wanted her to be. So she would have like a different friend group, and depending on like who she was talking to and who she was with, I feel like she kind of formed into what she believed that they wanted from her. She always seems to be like pushing the boundaries. She always was seeming to do like riskier and riskier things as the novel went on, and that was very interesting to read about because you really didn't know where the story was going to go. You didn't know how it was going to end, and I feel like she was definitely pushing boundaries within this book. There are a lot of descriptions of the type of work that she is doing, so if that is a trigger for you, I wouldn't read it, but there definitely is a lot of scenes with her actually going to work and all of the clients that she is meeting and what she is doing with these clients and the types of things that she is doing, and there are a lot of trigger warnings for certain things, so definitely read those if they are something that would bother you. It was an entertaining book, but I definitely know that I won't remember this in a month, or even when I am going to be doing my wrap up. Like, I definitely won't even really remember what this book was about because it just was not memorable. I really didn't like the writing style. I thought the writing style was very weak, and it just really honestly wasn't a good writing style for me. I really wasn't sure how the ending of this book was going to go, and I really didn't like how it ended and the choice that our main character decides to make and kind of like the turn that she takes in this book. I feel like it just isn't fair to herself, and if you've read this, I think you know what I am talking about. But yeah, this almost feels like it was like a missed opportunity book where you had so much potential to dive into certain things and talk about certain things and bring light to certain situations and work that not a lot of people would probably know about, and I feel like it was just a missed opportunity with this book. It was like a super easy book to read, but again, the writing style was just not complex at all, and it just wasn't a great writing style. So after kind of like speaking through my thoughts, I think I am going to settle on another 2.5 stars for this video. It really wasn't my cup of tea, and I really won't remember this in a few days, I feel like. So yeah, 2.5 stars for this one. So now I will quickly wrap up the entire video for Tackle My TBR episode 11. I feel like this definitely was not my best episode, so I'm hoping that next episode we pick some really good books, but I am happy to have these off of my TBR, and I was very much excited to read some of them, and I did find one that I actually really liked. So the first one that I read was LA Weather by Marie Escandon. I did give this a 2.5 stars. I feel like the beginning of this book really gripped me and it captivated me, but I also felt like the author was doing way too much trying for it to be like a soap opera, and there was just so much drama and so much like devastation that happened to this one family within a year that it became a little bit unbelievable. So it definitely wasn't my favorite, and it started to lose steam in the last 50%. So again, 2.5 stars for this. Then I read Anatomy, a Love Story by Dana Schwartz, and I did end up giving this one a 4.25 stars. I had such a fun time with this book. It was such an enjoyable read. I loved the atmosphere of this book. I really enjoyed how the romance was done in this book. I loved the idea of having like a female surgeon, and I personally really did like the ending of this book, although a lot of people say that the ending is what loses them. I actually really liked the twist and the mystery and the ending of this book. So this was the best book that I read for this episode, and again, I gave this a 4.25 stars. Then I read Watch Over Me by Nina LaCour. This I did end up giving a 3 stars. I think that the writing was beautiful. I think that the deeper message was there. I just think that I personally was not smart enough for it. I did understand some of it, but most of it went over my head, but I did end up giving this one a 3 star. And finally, the last book that I was just talking about, Sugar Baby by Celine St. Clair. I did end up giving this one a 2.5 stars, and I really just talked about this, so I won't bore you with any more details. Really didn't like it. Writing wasn't the greatest, and I just feel like it was a missed opportunity. That is it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you did make it to the end of this video, go ahead and leave behind the heart emoji, but not just like any of the colored hearts, like the actual one that is a emoji of a heart. If you did like today's video, I would love it if you hit that thumbs up like button, and as always, if you are new here, I would love to have you stick around, so please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys all in my next one. Bye!